Jesse and Romy, thank you for two really deeply thoughtful Divrei Torah. Though you spoke about different verses in the Parsha and different aspects of Judaism, you both were taking us in a similar direction, and I'm going to see if I can explore a little bit the points of connection between your two messages. Jesse, you wanted to know why the fixed times on the Jewish calendar, the holidays, the festivals, we could even include the fasts in that, are so important. And what you found is that these days are about making time itself to make rhythm and meaning in life. But that the prophets make clear that from God's perspective, it's not just about marking time. We're meant to actively connect those days to our whole lives, to more fully live out their themes of community, of responsibility, and of justice and kindness. And Romy, you asked about what it means to not boil a kid in its mother's milk. And you found that though the verse was interpreted by our ancient rabbis to prohibit the mixing of milk and meat, there are actually many possible interpretations of the verse itself, and our medieval commentators suggest it could have been about the proper time to make a sacrifice, or it could have been about preventing cruelty to animals, but that regardless, there are multiple possible interpretations. Both of you are asking about mitzvot, and specifically why we do the rituals we do, whether that's about festivals or kashrut. And you both found that what seems simple and straightforward, for example, everyone knows that Sukkot always takes place right after Yom Kippur, and we celebrate it by building a sukkah, and we hang out in that sukkah for a week, or everyone knows that keeping kosher comes from the Torah, and if you keep kosher, you can't mix milk and meat. It's actually more nuanced. It's actually more complex. Yes, you are supposed to build a sukkah and dwell in it, but if you're not living out the larger values it represents, and you're not connecting it to your whole life, well, then you're not doing it right. And yes, kashrut prohibits the mixing of milk and meat, but its verse of origin has other equally valid meanings. This has a couple of important implications for us. First, Judaism, more than maybe any other religion, is inherently pluralistic. For thousands of years, our people have been interpreting and reinterpreting Torah and allowing multiple contradictory interpretations to simultaneously coexist. Second, we're not being asked to mindlessly obey. We're being asked to engage with our whole lives, our whole selves. The prophets are very clear. It is not enough to just do the thing. The mitzvah has to have integrity. It has to align with our lives. And in order for it to align with the rest of our lives, we have to understand what it's about, how it is calling us to live. And in order to understand how it is calling us to live, we have to ask questions. We have to get curious. We have to expect that there is deeper meaning within the mitzvah. And as you taught us, Romy, that deeper meaning is open to interpretation. It could be about preventing animal cruelty. It could be about connecting with God. It could be about connecting with the Jewish people, as you concluded with. It could be, as the prophets are bellowing, about living in harmony with our fellow human beings and the earth. In our Parsha, a second set of tablets are needed to replace the first. And last time, the Torah says that the first set of tablets were inscribed by the finger of God. And this time, with the second set, it is Moses who carves the tablets. Last time, God wrote, and Moses stood and watched. This time, God spoke, and Moses heard God's words and did the writing himself. This time, our tradition has it, Moses not only wrote what he heard, but also heard even more Torah that didn't get written down for centuries, for millennia. Torah that is still being written now. The point is that covenant means that we are not passive. We are not just along for the ride or going with the flow. We are not blindly obedient. We are active agents, using our conscience to engage our whole selves, our bodies, our hearts, our minds, our souls. And this human agency is modeled all the way from Abraham, through Moses, through the ancient rabbis, to now. Today, this Shabbat, we might be nearing the end of a horrific war. We gather with so much emotion at the possibility that the hostages might come home. Maybe tomorrow, maybe Monday, that this war might finally be over. I think many of us feel, a wave of immense relief, cautiously, immense relief and overwhelming joy. I talked at the beginning of the service about causes for joy. What greater cause for joy could we all agree on right now? And I think we're filled with hope, the possibility that it really is real this time. And I say cautiously because I think probably all of us are also maybe holding back a little bit, like we'll believe it when we see it really, really, really. We were supposed to have Liran Berman here tonight, the brother of Gali and Ziv Berman, twins who have been in Hamas captivity for 2 years. And Liran obviously canceled speaking here tonight because he wants to be home, to welcome his brothers home, we pray, in just a couple of days. All of Israel has been holding its breath for 2 years, living inside of a trauma, completely stuck on October 7th, 2023, until those hostages come home. So the idea that they might all come home in the next few days is overwhelming. And the idea that no more Palestinians will die from this war, that there will be no more bombs and no more starvation and no more evacuations and no more tanks and no more shooting and no more devastation of Gaza, no more starvation of the people of Gaza, no more wreckage of Gaza, the massive destruction of human life and habitation, the idea that that might stop, it's almost unbelievable. It seemed like it would never stop. And amidst the gratitude and the relief and the joy, I ask us, as people who have agency, how are we to understand this moment? Because what it seems like from the news that I have seen is that this decision right now was made without the preconditions that we've been theoretically waiting for all this time. Hamas did not agree to disarm yet, as far as I haven't seen the news since Shabbat started, but when the agreement was made to do this, my understanding is that they did not make that agreement. They did not agree on the terms for governance for Gaza. Instead, there was suddenly the will to end the war, seemingly coming from our president for motives that might have to do with personal glory, not clear. But we'll take it. Whatever works, we'll take it. Of course, we'll take it. But if it was never actually about Hamas totally agreeing to disarm, or if it was never actually about agreements around the future governance of Gaza, why didn't we bring the hostages home a year ago or more? Why have the people of Gaza been tortured all this time? Why have the hostage families been tortured all this time? If this decision was made now because 2 years is a round number, or because the Nobel Committee was deliberating, neither of which are actually real defensible reasons to fight or not fight a war, well then what could have been done sooner? What could the world have done? What could the actors have done sooner? What could we have done sooner? Similarly, if we just watch and wait, if we're passive now, after, please God, the hostages come home and the war ends, what will happen? What will happen in Gaza? What will happen to Israel? What will happen in the West Bank? Because if we've learned anything from these 2 years, I pray that we have learned that what happens to Gaza and what happens in the West Bank is entirely intertwined with what happens within Israel. And what happens to Gaza and the West Bank and Israel is entirely intertwined with our own well-being. And if the same kind of forces that brought us this war, both Palestinian and Israeli, are allowed to take hold or keep power, the nightmare will not actually be over. But if instead there is true peacekeeping, there is massive global investment, there is true healing and true repair, true accountability and reconciliation, a real negotiation for the safety and the self-determination and the freedom and the equality for both peoples, well then another future might be possible. Today is not the day to worry about that. Today is the day to allow ourselves, cautiously, to fill ourselves with hope and relief and joy. But next week or next month, once we've had a chance to truly celebrate and truly allow that relief to wash over us and fill us and begin the path of healing, then we must remember that we have agency. We are not passive spectators. We do not just follow or blindly obey or go with the flow. And what happens next affects us profoundly. So, Jesse and Romy, thank you for teaching us to ask good questions, to not just take the surface explanation at face value, but to engage, to interpret and reinterpret, and to connect the actions of our lives to the meaning of our lives, to live our Judaism with our whole selves. As we sit in our Sukkot for the next few days, and as we approach this Simchat Torah, may we truly feel a Sukkot Shalom, a shelter of peace over our heads and over all the heads of all the people in Israel and in Palestine. And may our mourning turn to dancing. Shabbat Shalom. Chag Sameach.